With just a couple of weeks left until signing day, we'll talk a lot of football recruiting here on the show. Hi, I'm Kyle Charters. He's Brian Newbert. This is Gold and Black Live. Some recruiting. We'll look at basketball as well, maybe some basketball recruiting, and also Tony Ursuline, the first-year wrestling coach at Purdue, will join us in segment 2. But Brian, segment 1,
Yeah.
the A-team is here today with Alan and Stacy gone,
Yep.
booted.
Yep. We're gonna get in some trouble, aren't we?
We are. You told me that
Our
I
two
could
moral
let you rant.
compasses. Our two moral compasses are gone. We can do whatever we want. This is awesome.
You actually wanted to get in a fight on the show. The wrestling coach is coming on, so maybe it'll all work out today.
I'm not fighting him. I'm fighting you. There's no way I'm fighting him.
Let's tell you how the show works. You watch us on your screen. You're probably better off just listening to us, I would imagine. You can also submit some questions to us if you'd like to. Actually, would appreciate it if you would submit us some questions, because then it would give us something to talk about, and we could stray from the script. It might make it a little bit more interesting show. So do that on your screen there, either in the chat or you can submit it to us, and Gordon in the back will get those to me, and we'll try our best to answer your questions. Thanks to our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn. When tomorrow is a big day, stay at HGI tonight. State Farm agent Trent Johnson. Visit Trent on the web at trentismyagent.com. Triple X Family Restaurants on the hill but on the level, a Purdue tradition since 1929, and Basham Rentals. Already leasing for fall of 2015. Visit bashamrentals.com. All right, Brian, so how long, what do we got? We got 2.5 weeks? I can't do math. 2.5 weeks till signing day? Somewhere in there? A couple of recruiting weekends left?
Yeah. It's the first Wednesday in February. Will be signing day. Today's January 16th. So, yeah, you're looking at roughly 2.5, a little less than 3 weeks. So Purdue's got a lot of work to do here in these next couple weeks, obviously. Sitting at 22 commitments right now, give or take. We've still got some fluid situations. I'm still counting Rob Ennis as a commitment until I absolutely positively hear otherwise. But Purdue's got probably maybe roughly approximately a half a dozen spots to go. That's not an official number. That's me just talking off the top of my head. Some very specific needs, very important needs. Tight end, defensive tackle, probably another offensive lineman or two, maybe another defensive back. Wide receiver remains a priority. If they can get a good running back, I think they'll take a good running back. So still a lot of needs. As far along as Purdue was at one point in recruiting, they had a lot of early commitments, more than they probably would have liked. Now things have caught up to the point where Purdue still has a lot of work to do here before signing day. So a lot of work to do.
Ennis, of course, is the running back from New Jersey. Got himself in a little bit of trouble and kicked off the football team. So, as you said, yet to be seen what happens there, but sort of, up in the air, I guess. That does lead, to the idea of another running back coming on board, and Keyshawn Vaughn has been a guy that we've watched, and a lot of people have watched for a long time. There was another story about him, today, about where he is a little bit, especially with West Virginia. What can you tell us?
Well, he's been the rare kid who's this highly recruited and this closely watched who keeps picking up the phone. So you're seeing a lot of stories on him. His recruiting's been an interesting one and kind of a changing landscape. A couple of weeks ago, he tweeted that he was down to Purdue, Ohio State, and Louisville. Ohio State fell off the map when they got another recruit, Mike Weber, who they flipped from Michigan. So that kind of reopened things for him. I think he would have gone to Ohio State had Ohio State remained there. Louisville's got a ton of running backs committed. He's opened back up to an extent. He's going to Notre Dame this weekend. Notre Dame is desperate for running backs. They're bringing him in for a visit this weekend, along with a couple other running backs, guys maybe they want a little bit more. So at this point in the game, Purdue's playing a little bit of a battle of attrition here, and is going to have to weather the storm on some pretty attractive options for Keyshawn Vaughn. I know he just got a West Virginia offer, might visit there. Illinois might get a visit. Purdue's been in a better position long term than a lot of these other schools. He still has remaining official visits to. That said, Purdue's history against a school like Notre Dame is not a good one in recruiting.
Yeah.
Nor is the history of a lot of people against Notre Dame a good one in recruiting. So Purdue's just going to have to hang in there, keep selling opportunity. I'm sure they'll be down in Nashville to see him here in the next couple of days if they haven't been already. And he's a guy motivated by early playing time, I'm quite certain. And as we've said before, there might not be a more freshman-friendly depth chart at running back in college football right now than Purdue's.
Purdue has some guys committed, of course, and one guy already signed. But I guess the general feeling is that Vaughn, A, is pretty good, and B, there's nothing solidified there. So
yeah, it is a wide-open field at running back for Purdue. Purdue does have 3 other running backs committed. What they plan to do with those running backs, I'm not entirely sure. Richard Worship obviously is a 245-pound running back. They could do something with him as a fullback. Tario Fuller is also a bigger, more physical type of running back. They could do something fullback oriented with him potentially. Markel Jones is a straight up running back, so he would obviously be competition there. But it is a wide open backfield, so even if there's other freshmen coming in, there are carries for more than one freshman next year. There's no incumbent. Keontae Green would be your incumbent, and he was your third string running back next year. It is a wide open deal.
Always love when you get this question on the board because I like your response. Everybody always asks, do you foresee any surprises down the stretch? And of course, if you did, there wouldn't be surprises. But
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of news here and a lot of
Yeah.
things to follow here in the last couple of weeks, just because
Right.
it does seem to be such a fluid situation.
Right.
Not only with needing half a dozen more guys in some pretty critical spots, but holding on to some of the guys that you do have.
Yeah, it's been a pretty surprising last month. Right now Purdue's looking at a lot of junior college guys, looking at a lot of guys opening up from other commitments that have kind of fallen apart, looking at a lot of more under the radar type of guys. So a lot of the players who've materialized in the last couple of weeks have been surprises. There haven't been a lot of those guys where you knew Purdue wanted them from day one, who they're still on them and chasing them till the 11th hour. But in terms of surprises from here on out, I think that obviously last January showed us how eventful things can be in terms of holding on to your own commitments. Purdue had probably a record number of decommitments last year. I don't foresee a lot of that coming this year, but I didn't foresee a lot of it coming last year too. As you said, if you could see it coming, it wouldn't be a surprise. Purdue does have some of its more attractive or more higher regarded recruits already signed, so they don't have to worry about babysitting Markel Jones. They don't have to worry about babysitting Elijah Sindelar till the very end. They don't have to worry about somebody catching on to the existence of an Anthony Mahongo or a Mike Mendez at the last second, deciding they want to offer those guys. So some of that stress has been alleviated a little bit simply in the volume of mid-year signees they've gotten. But still, there are some guys Purdue's going to have to keep recruiting.
Bryson Hopkins is probably one of those guys. Not because we don't know anything about him as a person necessarily, but the other offer that he has,
It's a big one.
automatically sort of sets off the
Correct.
whatever
Alarm.
you want to call it, alarm
Yes.
or whatever. I mean, he has an offer from Florida now,
Yeah.
so what
Yeah.
what do you do in that situation if you're him? I mean, you can't
Well-
answer that, but if you're Purdue, certainly it's a little concerning.
Oh, absolutely. He is taking it very seriously, I will say. For people who don't know, we're talking about the tight end from Nashville, Bryson Hopkins from the Ensworth School down there, who went the whole season without another high major offer other than Purdue. Kind of sat back, didn't commit early to Purdue because he wanted to play out his senior year to see what happened, specifically what happened with the SEC. He committed to Purdue the second weekend in the second weekend in December. And then a couple weeks after he did that, he gets an offer from the new staff at Florida, who I guess is scrambling for tight ends. So now he's got to decide what he wants to do. I know he's taking it very seriously. He understands if he visits Florida, it's kind of an affront to Purdue. He might view it as a decommitment from Purdue because he probably puts stock in the meaning of the word decommitment or stock in the word commitment. He understands that if he's visiting other people, he's not all in on the school that he said he's going to. So he has a pretty big decision to make, and obviously if you're Purdue, there has to be some alarm there in the sense that not only is Florida a historically very, very good program, he's in an SEC state, there's probably some appeal there, and obviously Purdue, but Purdue needs tight ends, obviously, and Purdue has fostered a very, very long relationship with him that has really resonated with him as he's started this process of deciding what he's going to do, but still anytime, a Florida program like Florida offers one of your commitments, you have to be concerned. I know Purdue saw him yesterday, and they're going back to see him again on Monday, so they're gonna stay in his ear the best they can.
So some guys coming in this weekend and next weekend, because I guess the dead period is over now, right? As of
Yes,
yesterday?
yeah, it ended yesterday. Coaches went back on the road, and campus visits will resume.
Any idea, you get any sense for how close or who might be the closest or anything like that?
Yeah, depending on what Purdue's pecking order is right now at wide receiver, obviously always this time of year, coaches have to triage their priorities, who they want more than somebody else. There's a lot of guys you got to keep recruiting just to keep them on the line in case you decide you need them later. So it's really hard to tell who the A-list guys are, who the takes, so to speak, are sometimes this time of year. But Dominique Young, the wide receiver from California, has an offer from Purdue, has an offer from San Jose State. We know Purdue wants another receiver or two. They already have a junior college receiver, but I don't think they'd be averse to taking two. It sounds to me like they have a great chance to get him to commit this weekend if he's a guy they will take right now. I don't have any reason to believe he's not, but this time of year I like to qualify everything we say in that regard, because sometimes guys try to commit and it's not there. Jess Trussell, too, the tight end from Texas, has a Purdue offer, easily his best offer right now from a prestige, from a magnitude of program perspective, on top of the fact that Purdue desperately needs tight ends and there's opportunity there. If he's a guy at this point they'll take, I think they have a great chance to get him. They do have a lot of other tight ends lined up for official visits, so it's hard for me to say that they would take tight ends now before all those guys have made their visits. But if they will, I think they have a great chance to get him. And then there's a few other guys. There's a defensive tackle coming in, Eddie Wilson. He's committed to Bowling Green right now. Mm-hmm. Purdue has not offered him, but my spider senses tell me that if Purdue does offer him, they'd have a great chance to flip him. Also, Larry Wells, an offensive tackle from Ohio, does not have an offer from Purdue yet. If he gets one, there'd be a great chance probably that he would jump in the boat. Maybe not right away, but at some point shortly thereafter. Other than that, those are kind of the four guys.
Yeah.
And those are the four guys. Those are the guys we know about. We know about 7 visitors right now. The list is up on our website. There's undoubtedly more than this. There's a lot of off-the-radar guys being recruited right now. So we know of 7 guys. There could easily be 17, and we just don't know about time.
Yeah. You know, some of the people that we have watching might not be regulars on our website. The whole recruiting process is a little bit complicated because you can backdate guys who sign mid-year. You have a certain number of scholarships, 85. You have to get to that number, but you can oversign by 3 at this point. It is a little bit of a juggling act to try and figure out when you get down to the nitty-gritty here of the last couple of weeks who you're going to take and sort of what that magic number is.
Yeah, that's why I keep approximating a half a dozen, because I don't want to say they have 30 and then put that out there, and then when they get to 29, all of a sudden it starts to impact the process when there's a number bouncing around. That way school X starts telling a kid that school Y doesn't have room for them, and it affects the process. So I always try to stay vague with that answer when I don't know it for absolute certain.
This class is not going to rank high nationally. It's probably not in the Big Ten, it seems. What do you make of that? I mean, Purdue has had to go after, I think, some guys who a lot of their high school coaches, and some of them would call them diamonds in the rough a little bit. Is that just a product, you think, of where Purdue is right now?
I think Purdue's always been that way. I think Purdue's always been a school that's had to identify guys that it sees promise in that maybe some other people don't. It has to identify guys who are a good fit, both, athletically, academically, culturally, whatnot. I know fans get tired of hearing this stuff, but that doesn't make it any less true. But I think this year, what you've always seen done is you've always seen kids like this taken by Purdue, but you've seen maybe four or five of them in a class. Right now, you're looking at a little bit more than that in this class. The only thing it underscores is Purdue's going to have to be right in its evaluations. Obviously, it's very exhaustive in what it does, both in evaluating players and getting to know them. Here in these last couple of weeks, you've seen Purdue get in on a lot of guys late, recruit them for a couple of weeks, and it'll end up getting a lot of those kids. And what the most important thing is Purdue being right more than it's wrong in these evaluations. And truly, it'll be a time will tell kind of deal. But the different thing about this class is Purdue's recruiting to so many short-term needs that you will know sooner rather than later whether or not Purdue is right.
I mean, there are some spots that you're going to see the results right away. Wide receiver, tight end,
defensive line.
Yeah,
you need guys who are going to play maybe not their first year in the program, but if not their first year, maybe in their second year. And there are positions where Purdue's going to. There's going to be positions where Purdue has not yet signed a guy who will be playing for them in the fall, because there are so many instant needs. Purdue needs guys who can step in at wide receiver. Obviously, running back is a wide open field. Tight end, you literally have no one coming back who's done anything. Anything. Even I'm not just talking about games. I'm talking about in practices. And
Jurasevich has 1 catch, I think, for 2 yards or so.
Does that count as something? If that counts as something, then I stand corrected. He has played, but he has not played in a true tight end role.
We said we were going to argue about something on the show. This is it.
Well, he has played, yes, but he has not played as a prototypical tight end. He's played in a fullback sort of role, so I'm not counting him. So if you want to fight over this, we can fight, but I guess I am.
Okay, moving on from that.
Yes.
This is Golden Black Live. We're talking a little recruiting right now. If you want to get us your questions, you can do so. Recruiting now, we'll talk about basketball in the third segment. Tony Ursuline, the first-year wrestling coach for Purdue, is here. We'll get to him in about 5 or 6 minutes here. But Brian, before we do that, let's turn to a little bit of basketball recruiting. Caleb Swanigan has been at the forefront of recruiting news, not just here, but in a lot of places.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to come right down to some sort of announcement during spring signing, right? I mean, that seems to be where it's headed.
Yeah, this will go the distance.
Yeah.
Promise you, this will go the distance. This will go, and he will be wide open publicly until the day he signs with somebody. I can promise you
Yeah.
that too. So this is
I
going.
mean, the hat deal probably and everything, you think?
I don't think he's going to do the hat deal.
Yeah. Just
He
announce
just
it
doesn't. Well,
on the Twitter.
I think he's just going to. It'll be a calculated
Or call
announcement.
somebody.
It'll be a calculated announcement. I could see it being a press release. I could see it being a planned tweet. I could see it being anything. But he'll be wide open until the day he's not wide open. I can promise you that. I think right now Purdue's got a legitimate chance, like a really legitimate chance here. But Duke is all in. Michigan State is obviously all in, as they have been for a long time. And this will be one of the most hotly contested recruitments Purdue's been involved in quite some time. Probably since Tyler Zeller.
Yeah. I mean, your message about Purdue
Gary
has been,
Harris, too. Forgot about him.
your message about Purdue has been the same for a while, that he's a good fit
Yeah.
and could come in and sort of be a missing piece. That's a good argument, but Purdue is going up against some big boys and, have lost some of these over the years.
Right. Well, I will tell you, this might be a little bit of a different case, because I think the single most important thing here is his fit from a basketball standpoint. He wants to play right away, as a lot of kids do, and he wants to be a standout right away.
Mm-hmm.
And they are looking at the infrastructures they would play within. And right now, Purdue can say, we're going to play you at power forward. We're going to put you next to a gigantic 7'2" center who's going to spare you a lot of the nonsense big men typically have to deal with around the basket. We're going to surround you with shooters, Ryan Klein, Kendall Stevens, Dakota Mathias. Although Purdue's not shooting as well this year as it would like, Purdue does have a pretty good infrastructure. I think they have to get point guard settled, but he's paying very close attention to the personnel at every school that's recruiting him. And he knows Purdue's personnel inside and out, which tells you that he's paying very close attention to how he'd fit in at Purdue, who he'd be playing with, and whatnot.
He's made no statement about how long he wants to be in college, right?
No, he's not
But
going to
is
say
the,
anything like
the
that.
general feeling, though, is that he's a short term?
Well, if this weren't a fast track situation, by fast track I mean wanting to get to the NBA sooner rather than later, he wouldn't have reclassified, in my opinion, from the 2016 class to the 2015 class. You don't see that every day. You don't see guys move up a high school class in basketball. It's pretty obvious
Yeah.
why they wanted to do that. And by doing that, they kind of compromised the recruiting process a little bit, because that took out the most important year in a lot of ways to the recruiting process. That's a whole year worth of visits you could have made, and now here he is going through the whole recruiting process during his senior year. So he's kind of cramming all of his recruiting right now into his high school season, which has made for kind of a different situation. But he's paying very close attention to personnel more than anything, and Purdue has a pretty good personnel situation that they could put around him. I will say this also. This is not a group that will be starstruck by the coaches recruiting him. So anybody who thinks that Tom Izzo or Mike Krzyzewski is just going to come in and just trump Purdue at hello, I don't think that's going to be the case, because what you're dealing with is, he's very close with Roosevelt Barnes, his guardian, who's a professional sports agent and has had Deion Sanders over to the house and has had people, he's used to dealing with big time stars and, star power types. And I don't think they're going to be overwhelmed by, any particular college coach coming in there. They're going to look for the best fit for Swanigan, where he projects to play the most right away and where he projects to have the most success right away. And that could end up being Purdue for all we know.
You mentioned point guard before we move on to the next segment. Are they going to look for somebody in the spring? I mean, John Octius sort of came to him at the last moment and has, in some ways,
Yeah.
saved the day for them, but he will be gone soon.
Right.
And there are some questions then afterward. I mean, if I'm looking at the roster, Swanigan aside, I'm wondering what they're going to do.
Yeah, Purdue
Point
has
guard.
to cover its bases in the backcourt. This will be the third or fourth straight spring, it seems like, where Purdue's been looking for a guard. I think they'll look at all available options again. They'll look, everybody talks about the fifth-year senior market, like you can just go out and find one, where it's not that simple. You don't know who's going to be out there, and the guys who are out there are going to be recruited by everybody in the country, because it's a free player for 1 year with no investment, and everybody will take one if they can get one. So they will recruit one even if they don't need them. Purdue will look at JUCOs, prep school guys, high school guys, whoever, transfers even. But Purdue could really stand to help its backcourt a little bit this year. The one thing that's John Octius' success this year is kind of underscored is where Purdue would be without him right now.
Yeah.
And, you don't even want to think about it from Purdue's perspective, because they might really be in a bind at point guard.
Yeah.
And the personnel you would have had at point guard this year is the personnel you're going to have at point guard next year without any sort of transactions.
Right.
So I'm sure Purdue is going to exhaust every available option to try to safeguard itself against that.
All right, break time for us here. Brian will step out for a minute. We'll bring Tony Ursuline, the wrestling coach, in to talk a little bit about his Boilermakers. A big weekend for them. A couple of Big Ten duels against Northwestern and Penn State. We'll talk to him about that and a lot more in segment 2. So stick with us through the commercials. We'll be back in just a moment. You're watching Gold and Black Live.